Hi everyone and welcome to another YouTube video. In this video I'm creating one of my final pieces. This piece is an asset for one of my characters. For this asset I chose a rat in a rat cage. The rat's name is Michael. Here is a picture reference. So to start off this project I'm creating a box to create the bottom of the cage. Then I'm going into the poly tool, highlighting the bottom poly and using the bevel tool. Then I'm starting to create the cage. Here I started with a thin box, then accurately lined it up with the bottom. Then using the connect tool, I highlight top and bottom and both sides to create lots of little boxes. This is so then I can proceed to use the extrude tool on the sides and top to create the rest of the cage. Then on the rest of the cage I'm doing the same thing with the connect tool. I did start to finish the final side, but then I was like, this isn't good, I need to be able to see, so that's why I deleted it. So here starts a long process of me using the bridge and inset tool to create the holes for the cage. Here I have made multiple mistakes, which you can see. I didn't line up the one side and the other side correctly sometimes, getting confused. But I figured out quickly what I was doing wrong and overcame it. So to use the bridge and inset tool, you highlight every other tile. This is because otherwise it will mess up. Use the inset tool to create a border, then use the bridge tool to create the hole. You use the inset tool with the bridge tool. This is because otherwise it won't have that border to support the hole. So the outside will be really thin and the object will look odd. To say this took up most of my time would be an understatement. Okay, finally it's done. So I move it to the side and change the colour to grey. Here I start creating the wheel. To create the wheel, I created a reasonably flat cylinder, then proceeded to use the inset tool to create the border and use the bridge tool to create the hole. Then here you can see me start to create the stand for the wheel, but after a while of moving this around, I realised that I wanted a box instead of a cylinder. So then I proceeded to delete it. So with the cylinder, I wanted it to be reasonably short but wide. This is so then I can use the connect tool on the bottom to create two faces, then under the poly tool to extrude both faces, to then use the connect tool on the sides again of the new extruded part to then extrude outwards again, to repeat the same process until we get the full stand. Now I've started to create the support for the wheel. So we started with a long thin box. Here I just messed around with the length and twisted it using the rotate tool to then fit correctly for the length of the wheel, and then proceeded to clone it. Okay, next I wanted to create the water bottle. To create this I moved the cage back onto the center. This is so I can correctly measure up against the cage. Started off by using the connect tool on the bottom for the tops and sides. You then highlight the middle four polys to extrude them slightly. To then repeat that process twice to create the little sipping part. After For that, I use the chamfer tool virtually all over the product to make a nice smooth base. Then here's me lining up correctly for the cage. Now here I started to create the base for the ramp. I started off with a little box, then putting it into the cage to correctly get the size of it, then cloning that part to then move it downwards to create the sloping part. Then moved the cage outwards so I can see it correctly. Then I edited the size, making it longer, then creating the base for it, changing their colours as we go. Then and for an extra part, I added a little bowl. To do this, I created a reasonably thick cylinder, then highlighting the middle pulley using extrude, but pulling it inwards instead to create the bowl effect. Then I just added a little sphere for a ball, which I thought looked cute. So now I started to create my rat. I started off with a thick square and chamfered off all sides. Here you can see me fiddling with colours to try and get a good representation of what I'd like. Here I started to create the arms, which as you'll see in a minute, I created wrong. What I did was create a box, use the bevel tool and chamfer it. Then I tried to bend it and it wouldn't bend. So I was googling everywhere, why isn't my object bending. As you can see here, I'm experimenting with new things. So I found out I need to bend it first to then do it, but the way the box was bending was really weird. And I realised I have to do it on a cylinder so that it bends the way I'd like it to. Do. So here I am creating a cylinder and bending it around the body. Here I began chamfering it. Realising I did the wrong step, I deleted it and then highlighted it with the poly tool and beveled it. Then I chamfered it to create a smooth edge, how most animated paws are in cartoons. Then I cloned it and added it to the other side. Then I started to create the cheese. So to do this, you start off with a little box, highlight the left side poly, use the bevel tool to extend it at an angle, then use the chamfer tool all over. Then I proceeded to move it up to the hands. At this point, I realized I messed up my body shape. The way I wanted to do it was to create a box, use the bevel tool on the top poly to make it go in slightly, then to chamfer the whole thing. This gives obviously the small to big effect. Here I then changed the color of it and moved all of the accompanying objects towards it. Here I started to create the feet. Here you can see me struggling for a little while because it wasn't making the shape I wanted it to make. I wanted the ends of the feet to be really curved, but at this point I didn't think to bevel the ends. I realized after making it that I could bevel the ends, but I thought this was okay. I then realized I need to move my rat inside the cage. So I moved Michael into the cage and moved all of his add-ons to the cage as well. While doing this, I also cloned the foot and added it to the body. Here now I've started to create the tail, starting off with a long thin cylinder, then using the bevel tool on the end and started to chamfer it. Then realizing I can't bend it, so I undid the chamfer, bent it beforehand, and kept bending it around the rat to make sure it bent around and looked like it was coming out correctly on the back of him. Then proceeded to use the chamfer tool on the end. Now I started to create the ears. So I created flat cylinders, then highlighting the front poly. I used the inset tool to create a border around the edge. This is to give the inside of the ear effect. I then used the extrude tool to pull it in ever so slightly. In the meantime, bringing it up to the ear. Then I cloned it and moved it through the other side. Here I started to create the eyes, so all I did was small flat cylinders and moved towards his face. Then I cloned it and moved it towards the left side. I then started the nose. I created a small little box affecting the size and using the bevel tool on the bottom. This is the final look for my first final asset, my college unit. I think considering it went really well, I was really worried that this was going to turn out really crap. But I think with all the stress, it came out really well. All I can say is 10 out of 10. I'm really proud of myself. Thank God for my tutors. Thank you so much for Polly. Here I then started to create the whiskers. So I created thin, long cylinders. Then edited the size, changed the colour, used the bend tool. Then I cloned it, moving it to the left side of the face. Cloning it again, using the twist tool, I made it face downwards, and then cloning it again and moved it to the left hand side. With that, I finished Michael. This is the final look for my first final asset, my college unit. I think, considering it went really well, I was really worried that this was going to turn out really crap. But I think with all the stress, it came out really well. All I can say is 10 out of 10. I'm really proud of myself. Thank God for my tutors. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this journey of creating my first asset. Thanks again. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.